So today we are starting with the fourth chapter of the air regulation, which is rules of the air. This chapter has a lot of topics, so I have divided it into two parts. So let's start with the part one. So let's start with the applicability of the rules of the air. So all the rules that are mentioned in this chapter are applicable to all the aircraft flying over the Indian territory and the aircraft registered in India, even if they are flying over any other country's territory. And the aircraft either in flight or an aerodrome shall comply with the general rules. So even if the aircraft is on ground, they have to follow the general rules. Now, next is the responsibility of the compliance of the rules of the air. So, this responsibility is of the pilot in command of the aircraft. So, the first responsibility is pre-flight action. So, the PIC of an aircraft shall have all the available information like the weather report, forecast, fuel requirement, flight plans, etc. After that, the PIC has the final authority as to the disposition of the aircraft while in command. So, any decision that are to be taken for the aircraft or for the flight is to be taken by the pilot in command. And the third is that the person whose function is critical for the safety of the flight should not be under influence of any psychoactive substance. So, if any person is responsible for the safety of the flight, he or she should not be under the influence of any psychoactive substance, which is like alcohol or drugs. Now, let's start with the general rules. An aircraft shall not be operated in negligent or reckless manner. So, any aircraft should not be operated in the reckless manner because that can be dangerous for the person or property on ground or in the aircraft. Next is the rule about the minimum safe height. So, except when the aircraft is taking off, landing in emergency, or with the permission of the Directorate General, aircraft shall not be overflown over the congested area or the cities below the permitted height. So all the airspaces has the minimum permitted height, and below that you cannot fly. After that, in this rule, we have another point which is about the aerial spraying, crop dusting, or the mining exploration. So, to do these things, you have to have the writing permit of the Directorate General to fly below the minimum height. The next rule is about the cruising level. So whenever you are flying, if you are on a cruising level, if you are above the transition level, you have to use the flight levels. And if you are below the transition level, you have to use the altitudes. So the next rule is about the dropping and the spraying. So nothing shall be dropped or sprayed from the aircraft except under the condition prescribed in the Aircraft Rule 1937, even with the parachute. So you cannot drop or spray anything from the aircraft. Next is about the towing. So towing the aircraft is not permitted in India, and the other objects can be towed by the aircraft in accordance with the requirement prescribed by the DGCA. So the towing aircraft is not permitted in India is about one aircraft towing the another aircraft. So the next is about the acrobatic flights, which are also known as the aerobatics flight. So some certain conditions has to be met when the aircraft is used for the aerobatics. So the first is that it should be flown by a licensed pilot or with the instructor for the qualifying purposes. The second is that if the passengers are carried, their consent should be obtained in writing. The third is that every person carried in the aircraft secured by the seat belt. Fourth is that the completion of the maneuver at height not less than 2000 feet. So if you are doing any maneuver, it should not be below the 2000 feet. And the fifth is that no flying in the vicinity of the aerodrome around the distance of 2 nautical mile and height of 6000 feet or 2000 meters. The sixth is that no flying over the populous area without the permission of Directorate General. So this was all the condition that has to be met for the aerobatics flight. The next is for the formation flight. So no aircraft shall be flown in the formation flight unless there is some special permission that is given by the Directorate General. In formation flight, the example of the formation flight is in the image, as you can see. So these upcoming rules are not only important for the exams but also for the flying purposes. So the first is approaching head on. So when two aircraft are approaching head on and there is a danger of collision, each shall alter its heading to the right. So both should turn to the right side, as you can see in the first image. Now, the second rule is about the converging aircraft. So, when two aircraft are converging at approximately same level, the aircraft that is on the right has the right of the way. So, the aircraft that has the other aircraft on the right should give the way. So, you can also see in the image that A is on the left side and in the B is on the right side. The aircraft B is on the right side. So, the B will have the right of the way. So this B aircraft will not change any direction, but A will change some direction and then get back on track when B is passed. So there are some exceptions for this converging rule. So the first is that the power-driven aircraft shall give way to the airship, glider, and the balloons, and any other aircraft towing objects. And if there is airship, airship shall give the way to the glider and balloons, and glider shall give the way to the balloon. So you can remember this by the image that I have uploaded. The first is that the power driven gives way to airships, glider, and balloons, and then after according to the image. And the aircraft that has the right of the way shall maintain the heading and the speed. So the next rule is about overtaking. So an aircraft that is being overtaken has the right of the way, and the overtaking aircraft shall keep out of the way of the other aircraft. So as you can see in the image 1, the aircraft on the left is being overtaken by the aircraft on the right. So the left aircraft has the right of the way. Next is about the landing. So whenever an aircraft is coming for landing, an aircraft in flight or operating on the ground shall give way to the aircraft landing or aircraft in the final approach. And if there are two aircrafts in the final approach, then the aircraft at the higher level should give way to the aircraft at the lower level. After that, we have rule about taking off. An aircraft taxiing should give way to the aircraft taking off or about to take off. So this is particularly for any aircraft that is taxiing on the runway. After that, we have the emergency landing. So any aircraft should give way to the aircraft in emergency. So all the rules that we saw about the right of the way, and they are not applicable for the aircraft in emergency. If any aircraft is in emergency, then that aircraft is of the highest priority. After that, we have the surface movement of the aircraft. So whenever the aircraft is on the aerodrome taxiing, an aircraft taxiing should stop and hold at all the runway holding position unless authorized by the ATC, and all the lighted stop bars unless turned off. So as you can see in the image, the solid yellow lines are the holding position of a runway. So if the aircraft is coming taxiing and you see this solid yellow lines, two solid yellow lines, you have to stop there unless you are authorized by the ATC. After that, we have the head-on aircraft. So if there are two aircraft coming head-on the ground, then both have to stop, and if possible, both alter the course to the right. And if they are converging, then aircraft on the right has the right of the way. The next rule is about the lights to be displayed by the aircraft. So from sunset to sunrise or during any period other than this, which may be prescribed by the Directorate General, the lights has to be on. So whenever the aircraft is in flight, the anti-collision light and the navigation light is to be on. And whenever the aircraft is on the movement area of the aerodrome, the navigation light, exterior light, and the anti-collision lights has to be on. And after that, a very important statement is that all the aircraft in flight or aerodrome and fitted with the anti-collision light shall display such light also outside the period specified above. So whenever the aircraft's engines are running, this anti-collision light has to be on, even if it is day. After that, we have rules about the simulated instrument flight. The conditions below should be met. So this is basically whenever we do the instrument rating, these rules has to be applied. The first is that the aircraft with dual control installed, and second is that a safety pilot present. So as you can see in the image, the pilot in command has the foggles on, so he can only see the instrument, and we have the other pilot for the safety reasons. So he can sit there and see if there are any clouds or anything, he can alter the course of the flight. After that, we have the operations on and in the vicinity of an aerodrome. So whenever an aircraft is in the vicinity of the aerodrome, he should follow these things. The first is that observe the other aerodrome traffic to avoid the collision. The second is either confirm or avoid the traffic pattern of the other aircraft. The third is make all the turns to the left unless specified. And the fourth is that land and take off into the wind unless instructed otherwise. After that, we have a subsection which is when the ATC tower is in operation. So whenever the ATC tower is in operation, all the above four rules has to be applied. And these other two rules, first is that maintain the continuous listening watch and on the appropriate radio frequency. And second is obtain either the radio or the visual signals for any maneuvers like taxi, takeoff or landing. So all the six rules has to be applied when the ATC tower is in operation. So the next topic is a flight plan and the rules that are applied to the flight plan. So a flight plan should be submitted prior to operating the following kind of flights. So first is the any flight provided with the air traffic service. Second is any IFR flight within the advisory airspace. Third is flight needing coordination with the military units or the air traffic service in the adjacent state. And the fourth is the flight across the international borders. After that, the rule is about the submission time of the flight plan. So, and for any flight, the flight plan should be submitted at least 180 minutes, that is 3 hours before, but not earlier than the 120 hours, which is 5 days from the estimated off block time. And the delay of 15 minutes or more to the departure time, PIC or his representative has to notify the ATC, and new flight plan has to be submitted or the old one has to be amended. After that, if there are any changes in the flight plan, uh, the air traffic service unit should be reported as soon as practical. And after the flight is over, for the closing of the flight plan, you have to report the arrival in person by radio telephony or via data link at the earliest possible. And for the time, so the time that are used in the flight plan has to be the coordinated universal time, that is UTC time, in hours and minutes and seconds if required. And the air traffic service unit clock or other clocks shall be checked to ensure correct time within plus or minus 30 seconds. And if the data link communication is used, the time has to be within 1 second to UTC. And the data link communication means the digital communication between the pilot and the ground. So next topic is the air traffic control services. So the first rule is the adherence to the flight. So you have to follow the current flight plan submitted unless requested and cleared for any change. After that, we have any, if there is any deviation from the current flight plan, if there is deviation in the track, then correct as soon as practicable. And if there is any deviation in the Mach number or the true airspeed, if the variation exceeds the plus or minus Mach 0.02 or plus or minus 19 kilometer per hour or the 10 knots, then inform the ATS unit. If there is change in the time estimate, then the change in that estimated time to the next reporting point has to be informed, except where the EDSC is activate and serviceable. So ADSC is a surveillance system. So if that is active, then you don't have to inform the time estimates. After that, we have the change in cruising level request. So if you want to change the cruising level, then you have to inform the ATC about the identification of the aircraft, new cruising level requested, Mach number, speed, and the revised time estimates. If you want to change the Mach number or speed of the aircraft, you have to inform the ATC about the aircraft identification and the requested Mach number or speed. And if you want to change a route, then you have to inform the identification of the aircraft, new route, destination if applicable, etc. After that, we have one rule about if you are in a VFR flight and the weather is below VMC. So you are flying visually, but weather is below the visual meteorological condition. Then you have to either do one of these things. Either you can operate under the special VFR, you can request for the IFR, or as instructed and cleared by the ATC. So we are going to see what is the special VFR and IFR in some next part of this chapter. After that, we have the position reports. So report the time and the flight level at each compulsory reporting point or when requested unless exempted by the ATS unit. So the next rule is about the communication. An aircraft operated as a controlled flight shall maintain continuous air-ground communication watch or establish two-way communication as necessary. And if you have the cell call, then it satisfies the requirement of the continuous watch. Cell call means selective calling. So ATC can directly call your aircraft if needed. And if you are using a CPDLC, which is the digital communication, the requirement of the continuous watch remains in effect. After that, we have the procedure for the radio communication failure. So in that we have two types of procedure. First is if in the visual meteorological condition, continue to fly in the VMC, land at the nearest suitable airport and report to the appropriate ATC. After that, if you are flying in the instrument meteorological condition, then you have to see either you are in the radar airspace or the non-radar airspace. So if you are in the non-radar airspace, maintain the assigned speed and level or the minimum flight altitude if higher for a period of 20 minutes following the aircraft failure report position, and then adjust the level speed accordance to the flight plan. After that, if you are in the radar airspace, then maintain the assigned speed and the level or the minimum flight altitude if higher for a period of 7 minutes following the last altitude or the level reached. The transponder set to 7600, the aircraft failure report position at the compulsory reporting point, whichever is later. So later of these three conditions, you have to fly for 7 minutes. After that, if you are going to do one of this procedure, either the non-radar procedure or the radar procedure. After that, you are going to proceed according to the flight plan route to the navigational aid or the fix serving the destination aerodrome. Then you are going to commence descent as close as possible to the expected approach time or estimated time of arrival. After that, when you are above the aerodrome, complete the normal approach to procedure and then land, if possible, within the 30 minutes after the estimated time of arrival or the expected approach time. So this is the whole procedure for the radio communication failure. So this is the first part of the chapter 4, the rules of the air. We are going to complete the whole chapter in the next part.